This first question comes out of Ms. Malik's class as I'm walking through the newsroom here. Where do you get your story ideas? It is so exciting right now because I get ideas from so many different mediums, mostly email, but I have to check Twitter, I have to check my Facebook account, I have to check inboxes on 2 different Facebook accounts. We're getting phone calls, but that's less so. Now it's more electronic. But I would say mostly my ideas come from just pounding the pavement and tips in the community. So from contacts I know, from police officers that are on beats that I happen to be covering, from lawyers in a courtroom, from prosecutors maybe in a courtroom, from people in the community that are observing things, just out in the real world. So the key is to really be listening to as many different voices as possible and to listen for that idea that may come from a place you don't expect it. Because what I want to try to do is be as diverse as I can in my reports, not just report on one specific thing, not to get stuck in one area, let's say police corruption, but to also look at possible government waste, to look at problems that may be affecting neighborhoods, things like that. So I want to listen to as many types of ideas as I can from any different media that I can. Ms. Malik's class asked, what's the favorite thing about my job? That it's different every day, that I get to meet so many different people from so many different walks of life. When I walk in the morning, I don't know what I'm going to walk into. For instance, this morning, we have reptiles in the hallway getting ready for a live segment. There could be something on fashion that they would use these for. There could be a cooking segment that I will walk by. But then in my job, because I'm looking at things that are a little bit darker and a little bit more edgy, I get satisfaction out of being able to listen to people that don't normally feel like they're listened to. And that's pretty rewarding. Sometimes I can make a positive impact in their lives because I listen and then try to expose or talk about something that they don't think is getting attention. Lee's class asked, what inspired me to become a journalist? As far back as high school, and I was living in the small town of Kirksville, Missouri at the time, I liked programs like Nightline with Ted Koppel. I liked ABC's Primetime Live, which is very different today. I don't like it today, but I liked it back then. And I was really struck by investigative reports that helped people, that exposed things that I didn't see talked about anywhere else. So I was really into it. Now, I didn't necessarily think I wanted to do that right away. I wanted to call play-by-play for Major League Baseball. So I looked at some journalism schools. I went to Mizzou, and I had so much fun doing just the regular journalism, which you have to do first because everybody wants to do sports. I covered the '94 floods, and I asked questions that kind of rubbed people the wrong way, but they were not inappropriate questions. They were questions that needed to be asked, specifically a story I did about FEMA and whether residents were getting the appropriate attention fast enough from FEMA, and it rubbed some people the wrong way, and some agents from the federal government came to the TV station to try to clarify a few things, and my boss said, you did everything exactly right, and he said he was proud of me. And I really felt good. I really felt good about helping people and about doing stories that might be tough to do but needed to be done. So I decided I wasn't going to do sports. I was going to do this. Ms. Lee's class asked, how long does it take me to develop a story? That is different every single time. It's different every single time, and I couldn't tell you the next story how long it's going to take me to develop. So the tricky thing is I've got to have, well, I don't have to, but the way I operate is I have 30 different things that I'm working on at once. I've got a stack of files on my desk that is taller than me. And I'm working on things that I think can turn quickly, and I'm working on things that might take months, might take more than a year. And other things might not turn out at all because it just might not be. You have to be prepared to start looking into something and then decide it's not a story, or decide that you've been lied to, or something else. Sometimes you just don't know what's going to come ahead, but you have to be open to it. So I might have a day where I'm filling in for somebody because they're sick or because we're low on staffing, and I have to turn a story for that day. Now, that won't be an investigation. Maybe it'll be flood coverage. Maybe it'll be a holiday, and I'm doing a story about a crime that day, something like that. So it's different every time. It could be a day. It could be years. Ms. Wally's class asked, what's the typical day at work? And there absolutely is no typical day. It might be consistent for a period of days. Maybe I'm going to be in the office that whole week, and I might be behind the desk doing research, but I don't know from one moment to the next if that's going to change. So, and now I've got somebody making fun of me, but I'm not going to expose who it is because she's got to go live on the air here in a second. But this is an example. I'm in here, and somebody's got to come in and maybe do a cut-in because of a live event, and maybe I'm going to get called in, and I'm going to have to go out on a breaking news because there's a shooting, and maybe in one of my investigations there's going to be something that comes up that's related to it, and suddenly I have to do that even though I hadn't planned on doing it for another week. So it literally is different every single day. Wally's class asked, what's the hardest part of your job? Probably that it changes so much that the stress can be overwhelming. The exciting part is that you don't know what's coming next, and that's also the stressful part. So it's hard having a family in this business because you don't know that maybe one night you'll stay overnight. Maybe one night you'll be hours late. It changes so much that it's hard to catch a breath some days. And that's what makes it exciting. So it's also difficult because there are so many different things you have to be an expert in. I always tell people I'm an expert in nothing, but I try to learn enough about what I'm working on that I'm an expert in that topic by the time I've done that story. But when I started out, I'm very naive about it. So that's difficult too, because you have to get into somebody's shoes that maybe you've never gotten into their shoes before, and suddenly you're faced with having to empathize with this person's position or what they are dealing with. So that can be a challenge, but it's also what's rewarding about it. Ms. Essinger's class asked, if you can't get an interview, how else do you gather information for your story? That's a challenge too, and it's very hard in what I'm doing because often I'm dealing with a topic that somebody doesn't want to talk about because either they're afraid or it could jeopardize their job or their career. So it's important to have the documentation to back up what they're saying, whether it is a report, whether it's a document. And that's why sometimes in my stories you'll see graphics. You'll see that document come on the screen. You'll see pieces of that document. You'll see quotes from people, something from a court order, let's say, something that a judge has written. And so then the challenge is making that interesting when you're telling that story. How do you make paperwork on TV interesting? So that's hard, but sometimes you can also tell a story by telling a story, kind of like I'm talking to you here now. Maybe I'll go out to the scene. Maybe it's a scene of a crash, and I show people where it happened. I show people where the stop sign was, where the car is, show them the damage on the car. As much show and tell as you can do so that you are making people understand and follow the story, even if you don't have somebody that's giving you that soundbite. Ms. Essinger's class asked, what parts of school helped prepare you to be a successful journalist? I think what made Mizzou such a good school for me is because I learned by doing. So they have a TV station there, it's KOMU, and you practice by doing. The reporters are going out, the students are going out as part of their class time, and they are reporting on something. And now there's something going on behind me because we've still got I guess we're taping something for a newscast, so I think they're out in the parking lot and they're making a lot of noise. I can see it on this TV behind me. They're taping it, I think, for maybe the midday show. So the learning through experience is really important. And if you are an aspiring journalist, you can do that right now. You can, journal. You can write a journal, a diary, document what you see. Write it down, because sometimes you're not going to remember it days later like you will when it has just happened. So write it down. I mean, it's such a powerful tool. Document it with the phone. Record it. Show it. But then still document and write down the things that you didn't see on the video, because that's also important. So learn by doing.